If you force a single demand onto someone, their ego will instinctively resist it. People do not fear taking a path, they fear having no choice. But when you master the art of the strategic double-bind, you give them the illusion of absolute freedom while controlling every single destination. Engineered dilemmas force your opponent to select between two calculated outcomes, both designed by you. In this masterclass, discover how to construct inescapable choice architecture, eliminate alternative exits, and win regardless of which path they take. Human psychology is wired to rebel against direct force. When an individual feels backed into a single option, their psychological reactance triggers an immediate desire to fight, delay, or reject the term, regardless of how beneficial it might be. The illusion of agency neutralizes this defensive reflex by offering the target a structured selection. By presenting two distinct choices, you shift their mental focus from "should I accept this frame" to "which of these options suits me better?" Their brain engages in evaluating the differences between path A and path B, satisfying their fundamental psychological need for autonomy and self-determination. They feel empowered because they are making the final call. However, because you engineered the boundaries of both options, their felt freedom is an illusion. You retain total operational control over the final destination while they take full psychological ownership of the choice. A true strategic double-bind is never built on random options. It relies on precise structural design. The asymmetric trade-off is the practice of framing choice A and choice B so that each satisfies a different aspect of your strategic objective. Choice A might yield immediate capital or structural leverage, while choice B secures long-term equity, operational access, or valuable information. To the opponent, these two paths look vastly different. One might appeal to their short-term greed, while the other flatters their desire for safety or status. Regardless of which path they choose, your baseline operational objective is completely fulfilled. You do not care which option they pick because you have eliminated the possibility of a losing outcome. The asymmetry exists entirely in their mind, while your balance sheet records a win on both fronts. When faced with a dilemma, sophisticated negotiators will attempt to reject both options and propose a third alternative. Engineered choice friction prevents this escape by artificially inflating the cost of walking away or seeking a third route. You construct the interaction so that stepping outside your presented options requires immense cognitive energy, financial loss, or social risk for the opponent. You quietly highlight the complexity, delays, and severe drawbacks associated with any third alternative, while framing your two choices as clean, efficient, and immediately actionable. By making the exit doors look agonizingly costly, you funnel the target's decision-making process straight back into your engineered corridor. They willingly step into one of your two prepared traps, because doing so feels like the most rational way to avoid high friction. In high-stakes interactions, an opponent may initially reject your primary proposal out of posturing or shock. The counter-refusal trap anticipates this exact moment of pushback and uses it as the trigger to spring a secondary fallback offer. Instead of reacting with frustration when your initial term is rejected, you pivot seamlessly into an alternative. "I understand that terms A are too intensive for your current pipeline. We can revert to framework B instead." Because they just exerted psychological energy rejecting option A. Rejecting option B creates immense social guilt and cognitive fatigue. Option B, which was actually your intended target all along, now appears as a reasonable, merciful compromise. They accept the secondary offer eagerly to relieve the tension of the confrontation, completely unaware that their initial refusal played directly into your secondary trap. Control over a negotiation is not achieved by expanding options, but by systematically constricting the target's perceptual field. Perceptual narrowing is a psychological tactic that uses time pressure, information density, and precise framing to blind the opponent to unstated alternatives. When presenting a double-bind, you anchor the conversation intensely on the immediate trade-offs between choice A and choice B. You fill the room with detailed comparisons, logistical deadlines, and immediate consequences tied exclusively to those two choices. By drowning their analytical bandwidth in the minute details of these two options, you leave them no cognitive space to pause, zoom out, and ask, are these really my only choices? Their brain becomes entirely consumed with solving the immediate puzzle placed right in front of them. By directing their attention so completely, you effectively erase all other possible choices from their reality, ensuring they choose strictly within the artificial boundary line you have drawn around them. The final stage of an engineered dilemma is locking in the commitment before the opponent's analytical mind recovers and reevaluates the trap. Once the target selects choice A or choice B, there is a brief psychological window where they experience relief from decision fatigue. The irreversible lock-in leverages this exact moment of relief to secure binding, tangible structural commitments. You do not celebrate or draw attention to the victory. Instead, you immediately shift the conversation to operational execution, signing preliminary agreements, transferring initial assets, issuing public announcements, or establishing non-refundable timelines. You treat their choice as an absolute binding mandate that requires immediate action. By the time the opponent steps away, reflects on the interaction, and begins to realize that both options ultimately served your master plan, the agreement is already deeply embedded in structural and legal realities. Reversing the decision would cost them far more reputational and financial damage than simply living with the choice they made. You leave them holding their chosen option, completely bound by an architecture you designed from the very beginning.